I didn't cry when my ex-husband slammed the door for the last time. I didn't cry when I lost my job because I took too many days off to care for my son Owen after his asthma attacks worsened. But I cried when I picked him up from my parents' house and he whispered, "Mommy, I slept with the raccoons. Grandma said I was a little beast anyway." I stood still in their driveway, my arms tightening around his tiny frame as he pressed his face into my chest like he didn't want to exist. Owen is 8. Gentle, quiet, obsessed with animals. He draws foxes with big eyes and asks if ants cry when they're stepped on. The kind of boy too soft for a world full of blunt edges. I'd asked my parents, Gerald and Brenda, to watch him just for the weekend. I had a job interview 3 states away, and we couldn't afford for me to miss it. I'd packed his inhaler, his bedding, even the lavender plush wolf he sleeps with, and yet they made him sleep in the shed. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. The first time I asked them why, my dad laughed. "You know boys these days, always whining. He needed a little character building." My mom chimed in with her cold, brittle voice. "It's not like we chained him to a post. He had a blanket. It's a shed, not a dungeon." The world tilted. I looked at the shed. Rusted hinges, no insulation, a tarp flapping from the roof. There was still hay in the corner from when my dad used to keep goats. Owen's face was pale, his lips chapped. His cheeks had scratch marks. "There was something with claws," he whispered again. I said nothing. I just got in the car and drove. That was 3 months ago. I didn't go back to the job interview. I didn't look for work. I stayed up nights, applying for every remote opportunity I could find. I got certified in animal behavior training of all things because it paid better than anything else and let me work from home. We moved into a tiny 2-room rental and I homeschooled him while freelancing. It was hard. Some days I cried in the shower just to keep the tears away from him, but Owen smiled again. He started sleeping with both the window open and his wolf plush tucked under his arm. I thought I could move on, just cut them off and leave them to their cold, bitter world. But then I got a voicemail last week. My mom's voice, syrupy sweet and venomous all at once. "Hi, honey. Just wanted to let you know we're throwing a little birthday for your niece, Lila. She's turning 12. Thought you might want to see what a real family looks like. Bring Owen if you must. We'll be sure to put a mattress in the shed this time." Ha 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 ha. She actually laughed. And in that moment, I stopped breathing. I remembered everything they said about me as a single mom. You're just using your kid as an excuse. If you'd married someone with money, you wouldn't be so pathetic. You're raising him soft. But it wasn't just words anymore. They put my child, my asthmatic 8-year-old son, in a cold shed like he was an animal. That was the moment I decided. I was done crying. I was done forgiving. I was going to teach them what it felt like to be treated like an animal. And I already knew how. Because while working those gigs, I'd built a quiet little side hustle, high-end behavioral training for aggressive dogs. And I'd recently gotten a call from someone very rich, very powerful who needed help rehoming and retraining 6 massive guard dogs that couldn't be adopted out. I had just the place in mind, and just the people to test their manners on. You want to treat people like animals? Fine. Let's see how well you sleep in the shed. The day I showed up at my parents' house, I wasn't alone. I came with a truck. Not just any truck, a reinforced livestock transport. And behind the wheel was Marcus, a former canine handler turned trainer who owed me a favor after I helped rehome 2 of his most aggressive rescues. The look on my parents' faces when I stepped out in boots, gloves, and a windbreaker was everything I needed. Brenda opened the door wearing her usual smug pastel cardigan and pearls. Gerald stood behind her nursing a beer. "What the hell is this, Taylor?" my dad barked. "Oh, I'm just here to fulfill your wish," I said sweetly. "You said Owen should get used to being treated like an animal. Well, let's see how you 2 like it." Before they could speak, Marcus opened the back gate. 6 dogs, all trained, silent, and massive, waited patiently in steel cages. Belgian Malinois, German Shepherds, a Rottweiler named Karma. My mom's voice turned shrill. "You've lost your damn mind. Get those beasts away from my house." But I already had the paperwork in hand. Well, they mocked me for years, told me I'd never amount to anything, that I was just some sad, broke single mom I'd been quietly climbing, saving, learning. The house they lived in? Legally, it was now mine. A month ago, it had gone into foreclosure. My dad's gambling debt and failed truck lease had finally caught up. They never checked who bought it out of auction, never thought their pathetic daughter could possibly be the one. But I was. I bought the house in cash, and I had papers to prove it. Gerald snatched them out of my hand and skimmed the first few lines. His face strained. "This is fake," he growled. "Call the county," I shrugged. "It's real. I own the deed. I just wanted to see how long you'd keep squatting in a kennel before I turned it into one." Brenda tried to push past me, screeching about lawyers and lawsuits, but I stepped back, calmly giving Marcus the nod. He whistled. The dogs didn't bark. They didn't growl. They stood still, poised, trained like shadows with teeth. "I should mention," I said, folding my arms, "these dogs don't attack unprovoked, but they're very good at enforcing boundaries, like not entering certain rooms, or leaving the yard without permission." "What are you saying?" my dad spat. "I'm saying," I said, my voice steady, "you'll stay in the shed. Like you told Owen to, except I had it renovated. Insulated, secured, even wired for cameras." My mom laughed, but it cracked halfway through. "You're bluffing, you can't just—" "Oh, I'm not making you. You're free to leave." I turned and gestured to the front gate. The dogs followed my hand. "But you can't take anything from the house, and you can't come back. You either stay in the shed until your next housing option comes through or go. Alone. Now." My dad looked at the truck, then at Marcus, then at the dogs. He took a step back. "You want to treat people like animals?" I said again, quieter now. "Live like one." I gave them an hour to pack a few clothes. I didn't want them inside more than that. When they refused, I sent them each a toothbrush and 2 blankets, tossed them through the shed door and locked it from outside. Then I walked back to the house. Owen was waiting inside. He was on the couch, curled up with his wolf plush, watching quietly from the window. "Are they gone?" he asked. "No, baby, but they're outside now." "In the shed?" I nodded. He blinked. "Did they get a blanket?" 2. I smiled gently. He nodded. "Then that's more than I had." That night, the wind howled. I didn't go check on them. I had cameras for that. I saw my mom curled up in a ball, sobbing, and my dad cursing the air like it would listen. They lasted 3 nights. On the 4th, my dad called my phone. I let it ring. On the 5th, my mom texted me a selfie of her face red-eyed, wind-chapped, nose running with the message, "Is this what you wanted?" I didn't reply. I posted the picture to a private animal welfare group I ran. Captioned, "When your dog doesn't get enough shelter." The comments were merciless. That weekend they left. No goodbye, no tantrum, just gone. But I wasn't done yet. Because I still owned the house, and I had a new idea. 3 months after my parents left, the shed was gone. Not demolished, transformed. I hired a local artist, someone who worked with reclaimed wood and scrap metal. We painted the walls in soft green and yellow, insulated the roof, and lined the inside with rows of tiny cubbies and beanbags. On one wall, I hung a chalkboard. On another, a mural painted by Owen himself of a little boy hugging a giant black dog beneath a bright orange sun. I opened it as a healing center for kids recovering from neglect. It wasn't a shelter, no charity name, no press. It was small, private, and selective. Just a few kids from the community who needed space to talk, cry, or sit in silence. Owen called it the Brave Barn. We hosted weekend playgroups, music days, and even dog interaction hours supervised by Marcus and his best-trained rescues. The same kind of dogs my parents had once feared now offered comfort and security to kids who'd been told they didn't matter. And my parents? They came back. Of course they did. Not because they missed me. Because they were homeless. Word had gotten around about the girl who bought out her parents. They couldn't show their faces at their old church. None of their friends wanted anything to do with them once the story leaked, especially after my dad drunkenly told someone I locked them in a doghouse. One morning, I found them standing on the sidewalk across from the house. Brenda clutched a plastic bag, her hair greasy, lips cracked. Gerald leaned on a stolen walker, looking like a ghost of himself. They didn't even speak, just stared at the house like it was some dream slipping away. I opened the window and waved. "Morning, need something?" My mom croaked. "Could we maybe come in? Just to rest." "Oh," I said with a smile, "you can rest. I've got a nice warm spot ready, right out back." Their eyes widened. They turned and walked away. I never saw them again, and I didn't need to, because justice didn't have to scream to be heard. It just had to exist, quiet, firm, unmoving. Years later, when Owen was old enough to understand everything, he asked me why I'd done it that way, why I didn't send them to jail or blast their names all over the internet. I looked at him and said, "Because humiliation fades, but knowing they lived in what they built that lasts forever." He nodded slowly, "Like their own kennel." I smiled. "Exactly." He looked out the window at the kids playing in the yard, then turned back to me and whispered, "I'm glad you didn't put me in there, Mom." My throat caught. I knelt, hugged him tight, and whispered back, "They saw you as less than human, but you were always my reason. And we both knew the home they turned into a cage, we turned it into hope." One door at a time. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you